It was the 75th space mission of NASA from the United States. The Space Shuttle Challenger, Junior, took off the morning of January 28, 1986, but 73 seconds later, disaster struck. Behind the images of the space tragedy that traveled the planet, there is a secret story. That of the man who knew that the ship, with 7 crew members on board, was going to explode. Alan McDonald was the engineer and aerospace consultant who refused to sign off on the launch of the space shuttle. He was in charge of the solid rocket propulsion program for the space shuttles and refused to sign the document that approved the takeoff. McDonald's was a common story until January 28, 1986, the scheduled day for the launch of the Challenger, crewed by 7 astronauts, one of them a teacher responsible for giving the first space class in history. The night before the launch, McDonald and a colleague, Roger Boisjol, doubted the success of the mission, requested that the launch be postponed, and finally refused to sign off on the document that approved the takeoff of the Challenger. If he signed that approval, McDonald would put the astronauts' lives at risk. If he refused to sign, he would put his job, his career at risk. He didn't sign. Years later, McDonald said, "I made the smartest decision of my life," he would remember years later. Boisjol declared the same. They knew what was going to happen. What were these 2 engineers afraid of? It was very cold in Florida. The thermometer had dropped to 8 degrees below zero. Thick ice cords hung from the structure of the Challenger's launch tower. Everything was connected to the 5 cylindrical segments of the ship by joints equipped with double rubber rings. McDonald and Boisjol feared that the ice and the low temperature had made them brittle. Any leak could be fatal. They requested the postponement of the mission. NASA did not agree with McDonald's fears. The countdown continued. Then the world saw what happened. The first televised space disaster. The Challenger disintegrated in the air to the horror of thousands of spectators on the ground. McDonald still had another act of ethical heroism. 12 days after the tragedy, President Ronald Reagan appointed an investigative commission chaired by William Rogers, former Secretary of State to Richard Nixon. In one of those sessions, he heard that one of the NASA executives said that the company Thiokol had expressed its concerns but had approved the launch. He didn't say what McDonald knew, that NASA had put strong pressure on Thiokol, and that Thiokol had eventually overridden McDonald and Boisjol's concerns and authorized the launch. In 2001, McDonald retired from Thiokol and wrote Lies, Truths, and O-Rings. He became a fervent advocate for ethical decisions and gave hundreds of conferences. In them, he used a phrase that defines him and also defined his drama. The regret for the things we did is mitigated by time, but the regret for the things we did not do is inconsolable.